Look, I just want to give you a quick update of the NVSB, the RCS, a bit about animal welfare at the end, something also to ponder on. We'll get this going in a minute. Something to ponder on, something to think about anyway. So quite often I get asked about the NVSB. Is it a closed shop? How do we get onto the NVSB committee and all that sort of carry on? So no, it's not a closed shop at all. The National Velvet Standards Body is a committee that comprises of 2 farmers representatives, and they're nominated by Dairy Industry Levy Payers, you guys, and approved by the DFA Council, and 2 veterinarians nominated and approved by the New Zealand Veterinary Association, NZVA. And the appointment onto the committee is for a period of 3 years. And of course, the administrative work is to support the NVSB is carried out by the DINZ executives. And currently that committee's been together now for a very, very long time. Only one change that I'm aware of in recent times, and that was from the NZVA. So you probably already know, but who are the members of the NVSB? Well, we've got Ian Scott. He's the chair. Long-term chair since the NVSB began, and he operates out of the Waikato. Andrew Skerr, another well-known veterinarian, he operates based out of Taupo. Everybody knows Paddy Boyd. He's been on the NVSB for a very, very long time. And also Peter Allen, another well-known farmer from Southland as well, who's been there for a very long time as well. We've also got 2 seconded members on there as well. Ian Walker, everybody knows Ian, and also Amy Watts, and Amy's here today as well. She operates out of the Maniatoto region, central. Okay, so the mission of the NVSB is to implement the Code of Recommendations and Minimum Standards for the welfare of deer during the removal of antlers, and basically that's what the NVSB program has all been built around. Animal welfare and the safety of both the deer and the handlers. And it's the committee's role to ensure the NVSB program continues to function. And it's actually been a huge undertaking, and they've done an amazing job, that committee, over all of those years. Continuing to keep the program up and running smoothly so that you guys can continue to velvet your deer. And none of this could be achieved, obviously, without the cooperation and the commitments from the NZDFA and NZVA and, of course, the MPI. And for the number of accredited velveters, it's quite interesting. For the past 10 years or so, the accredited velvet numbers have remained relatively constant. If you look at the figures there, although this year there seems to be a bit of a jump in the registered velveters at the beginning of the season, and I think that's probably due to the Veltrack system coming into play. But back in 2020, 1,071, 2021 this year, 1,149. But that also includes the number of velveters that are in abeyance. So when you take that off, the numbers of certified velveters at the end of each season usually hovers around the 1,000, give or take 20 or so. So it remains pretty much constant. Of course, we never know the exact number of accredited velveters until the end of the season each year, and that's after you've all completed those three tasks, paying the fee, of course, having the supervising visit, and then having the drug books all reconciled and signed off by the veterinarians. And it's only then that the endorsement stickers are actually sent out, certifying each and every one of you. That's a little bit about the NVSB. For the RCS, you're all well aware that became a regulation in 2017. And that was imposed on the harvesting, handling, storage and transport of velvet intended for human consumption, as it says there. It's actually, in hindsight, it was a real blessing that that regulation came into play, because the NVSB recognised several years prior to that the need to improve the hygiene requirements around velveting sheds. If you think back to those times, a lot of the sheds were built right from day dot, and a lot of them had dirt floors and so forth, and so we had to really try and implement measures to upskill, update the hygiene in those sheds because we were handling a food product. We asked MPI and they agreed to give us a 3-year time frame to implement those the RCS right across the industry. They agreed to that, and I'll show you some figures shortly where we've almost completed that task. I'd have to say that the update or the uptake of most farmers in that regard has been absolutely brilliant to achieve what we have within the time frame. Just talking about auditors of the regulations, giving the auditors a bit of a plug. They have to hold a specific qualification. They have to be recognised under the Act, and we were quite fortunate that all of our NVSB auditors that we had originally doing the velvet removal audits were able to gain that qualification to allow them to carry on and audit the RCS. It was obviously a difficult task for most of the auditors, and I see at least one of them in the audience here. Difficult task for them to juggle between their own jobs, their own farms, and their own work commitments. But they've done a really, really good job, fantastic job. There's still some audits to be completed and some awaiting actions to be signed off, but I'm sure that we'll get there. And like I said, there's been great acceptance from all of you farmers undertaking the role to become accredited or signed off on the RCS. Some big commitments. There were some deer sheds that were pulled down and completely rebuilt. There were some that required major renovations. Some required repaint, concrete floors. Some just a simple pen plan of the clean zones put up on the wall of the shed. Some required new freezers, and some no work at all. So it's been right across the board. So here are some stats from the latest figures on the RCS. From memory, there's been about 8 sheds added to that list in the last 2 or 3 weeks. And I think that, again, is a result of people coming out of the woodwork because of Veltrac. But, I mean, we've been going down this path now for 3 years, and to all of a sudden find that there's some sheds out there that we never ever knew of and nobody's contacted us is quite surreal. So we've still got 54 sheds to be audited, right? There's 1,005 that have actually been audited and actually passed, which is great. There's 114 that have opted out of the scheme, and for a number of various reasons. Farms have been sold, deer have been sold, people have passed on, and so forth. 6 non-compliant sheds, and 67 that are still awaiting actions to be completed. And I'm sure, when you talk around, even at this conference, talking around to people, a lot of those actions have actually been completed. It's just the information hasn't been passed on, or indeed passed on back to us. And I took a hit when the RCS first kicked in, and we were having discussions about how we were going to do it and all the rest of it. And I said, there's probably about 900 sheds that'll need to be audited. I was way out, because we're 1,246 sheds that we've got identified there. So I was laughed at, but we'll get there. So that's fine. Just a little bit about animal welfare and compliance. And Lindsay Burton actually put up a slide in his presentation earlier on showing the code of welfare for deer. And that just reminded me that we're actually in the process of reviewing the code of welfare for deer. We have been for nearly 2 years now. For various reasons, it's been put off and put off. And discussions with NAWAC about a month or so ago informed us that they put the Code of Welfare for Deer review almost back to the bottom of the list because they're quite happy and quite comfortable that the current Code of Welfare serves pretty much all purposes. When it comes time, probably late this year, early next year, they'll re-engage with us as an industry, and we'll go through and look at anything that needs to be updated. We have had a working committee for the last 12, 18 months looking and reviewing the code among ourselves, and we have got a few areas within the code that need updating, but nothing major at this point in time. So I just want to quickly run over some animal welfare and compliance issues from a farm and a transport side of things. And to be fair, I'm very, very happy to say that the deer industry fares very, very well when it comes to animal welfare and animal welfare compliance. And that's not saying let's ease off. I'm saying we've actually done a really great job to date, but we can never let up. Testament to that, I think, is no doubt the long-term industry strategies that we've had in place, such as the on-farm QA program, the original one, and the still current deer QA transport program, the NVSB program. But I think most importantly is the commitment from all you guys, the farmers. You know, you've put the commitment in, and I don't think we would be anywhere near where we are in this day and age as far as animal welfare and compliance is concerned if you guys hadn't have done it. You've been striving all the way through to be the best, and I think we are, and I think we still lead the pack when it comes to animal welfare. Just as a bit of an example of that as well, we've had a velvet surveillance program running for about, 14 years or more maybe with MPI VS at processing plants. And that was a voluntary thing between us and MPI. I know there was a bit of opposition in the early days from MPI whether or not privacy issues would allow it and all the rest of it. And we sort of said, well, let's get on with it and let's do it and let's see what happens as a result. That's been really, it was a really fantastic program. In the early days, I'd have to say that there were letters being written probably every week from MPI back to transport operators, drivers and farmers for things like over-length antlers or maybe a broken pedicle or whatever back in those days. But from when it began and all of those letters, as we progress through time, those letters become less and less and less until recent times, and I'm not aware of any letters that have been written at all. That's how much of an improvement there's been through animal welfare issues picked up at the processing plants off every consignment of animals that goes in there. Even to the point now where MPI are saying what a great example it is of regulators working with industry to improve the welfare of the animals that we deal with. So that's pretty fantastic. So when the care and procedures regulations come into play 2, 3, 4 years ago, whenever it was, there were hardly any issues at all that came out of that because we were so far ahead of what those regulations were talking about. And just to show you that, here's a table of all of the notices or the offence notices, notifications that were sent out, animal welfare cases right through from 2020, 2021 to date and April 2021. And there's some big numbers there. But when you look at the deer specific stuff for 2021, there's 4. So, done really well. And I think that's testament to everyone that have played their part in it. And just while we're talking about that, there's some NATE figures, and NATE was talked about yesterday and again at the DFA meeting the day before. And again, there's some big numbers being played there, but on the left-hand side in the small writing, you can see that how well that the deer side of things has improved. And even MPI acknowledge that fact that that we have improved that far as well. So well done to everyone. And I just wanted to finish off with something to think about, industry risks. And one of the biggest industry risks I see is public perception. And that comes from people that probably don't understand good farming practices. Some of them probably don't want to know about good farming practices anyway. But a lot of that comes about by images on social media, for instance. And Innes talked yesterday about the next gen and some of the fantastic photos that they have up and the questions that they ask and all that sort of carry on, which is great. But it can also have the wrong photos on there, can have a negative effect and cause all sorts of problems. And like I say, particularly from people that don't really know or don't understand what everything's about. And it's not so much the photos that can be the problem at times, but it's the comments that follow along with some of those photos and totally misconstrued, or by the time it gets down, a few friend of a friend of a friend, and they all of a sudden taking a different view of what the photo is actually depicting. And it's quite interesting going through reading some of those comments. And I'm not going to throw up any photos or anything like that, but I think you all know some of the examples that I'm trying to talk about there. So the message from all that is never let up on animal welfare. We've done exceedingly well to this point, but we can't afford to take our foot off the pedal, that's for sure. And I think as an industry, right from the early beginnings, we've been able to keep ahead of animal welfare or keep it to the forefront of most of our strategies, and I believe that we enjoy the benefits of doing so. So like I say, again, never ever let it go. Okay, thanks.